This is the Business Storytelling Show, a top global marketing podcast listened to in more than 100 countries, live streamed on social media, and broadcast on DBTV. Christoph Trapp chats with industry leaders to help your company tell better business stories. Here's today's episode.
Episode 699, my friends, just one away from the big 700. Now, today we want to talk about what do you have to think about when it comes to the law and AI. I use AI all the time when it comes to law. I get a contract, I throw it in there, and I say, what's important to know about this contract? And that's actually how I caught one time in a contract where it said they would have the right to use my content worldwide without any fees. Now, maybe that's not what we're talking about today, or maybe I shouldn't even do that and just throw contracts in there. We'll find out. Mitch Jackson, he might be one of the most famous lawyers on the internet. I mean, you run across him everywhere. He has opinions. He'll tell us what's good, what's bad. And he is on the show today. Really, really excited about that. Mitch, welcome to episode 699.
It is so good to be here. I'm glad I'm the warm-up act for next Monday. Congratulations on 700, just around the corner.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. The opening act, right? Great topic too. Now, first of all, is that what I should be doing? Throwing contracts into Claude and say, give me the highlights. And what else should people think about when it comes to AI and the law?
I'll tell you what, it's pretty good, isn't it? It's pretty accurate what this technology is all about. I'm all in on AI. So are a lot of friends of mine. I just got back from speaking at the American Bar Association president's portion of this conference in Chicago. I was on the AI panel. This is what all the lawyers are talking about. So use AI, embrace AI, use it as a starting point to get ideas, to have it analyze your documents, your legal agreements, your legal ideas, right? But then take a step back and do your own due diligence. So to answer your question, great tools, great technology, but we're not quite there yet. So depending on the quality of your prompt, depending on the AI LLM that you're using or embracing, always a good idea to take a few steps back, take a deep breath, let it marinate, and then dive in through a different lens to make sure what you're looking at is accurate, what you plan on doing next is in your best interest, and what's in front of you is going to help you and not hurt you long term. So it's an interesting time, Christoph.
You know what I also find interesting is like the whole notion of AI, right? So we're talking about AI, but it's kind of like saying writing with a pen, right? You might like a really, really fancy pen, right? Like I don't even know what a fancy pen is, but let's say you have really, really fancy pens, and I only use the pens I get from hotels. Do you know what I mean? Completely different experiences. And if you think about all the different AI tools, right? I mean, we're saying, like, I even said the same thing. I throw it into AI, but am I throwing it into Claude, which in my opinion, tell me if I'm wrong, has a solid privacy policy. I know what it says. I know what we agreed to. Maybe not. You tell me. Or is it some startup that, that is doing, like, I don't even know anything. I didn't even see their privacy policy. Yeah. So it's like, how do you even know which AI tool to use and where to go? Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and it's interesting to me. So let me just take a step back to give context to what we chat about today. 30 plus years of practicing law, litigating cases, being fortunate to be named 2009 Orange County Trial Lawyer of the Year, 2013 California Litigation Lawyer of the Year. I've been using tech since the late 80s. I'm that lawyer that walked into the courtroom, Christoph, setting up a laptop during the morning break to use overheads during my opening statement. A judge looks at me and goes, "Mr. Jackson, what is that?" Well, I explained what it was. He goes, "You're not using that in my courtroom." So even back then, I realized there was an advantage to leveraging this technology, even though the court system and businesses and the consumers weren't using this technology back then. Fast forward to today, and we're all using technology, and it's a good thing, right? The AI train has left the station. So my responses to your questions come from 3 decades of playing in these different digital sandboxes, Web 2, Web 3, every type of technology device you can think of, including AI. And I think we're in a unique situation where, this is as bad as AI is ever going to be. But there are legal and privacy and security and use issues leveraging this technology, frankly, for whatever type of business you're involved with. And so hopefully during today's show, we can take my past experiences, my thoughts on the best way to use this technology, and to start off with what you just talked about, using Claude. Is it safe? Is it appropriate to put whatever you want in that prompt to create that document, to review someone else's agreement, to help write your marketing and advertising content? And I would encourage everyone, regardless of which AI platform you're using, dive into the terms of service agreement. See exactly what are you agreeing to. Are you allowing these companies to take your content and distribute it to third-party vendors around the world to improve the user experience? And frankly, that's what most of these TOS agreements say. What in the world does that mean? I have my own interpretation. And then understanding the pros and cons of using a particular platform based upon the terms of service agreements, the privacy agreements, okay, traditional IP law, intellectual property law, licensing and contract law. Then you can make informed decisions. But it's not just you. It's your team members, it's your employees, it's the people you're working for. You want to make sure everyone's on the same page with these items, these issues, and these things so that you can leverage your AI tools in a way that actually help you in business, as opposed to unnecessarily exposing you to legal liabilities down the line. So the first step is to review carefully the terms of service agreements before you start diving in and using any particular AI service.
What's interesting to me too when you talk about that is that, I've seen, like, even when social media first came around, right? People, like, I saw these policies and they were horrible. They were so bad because people didn't understand what they were even talking about. So they wrote these policies and then people didn't do anything because it was just too complicated, or they felt like they were pushed in the corner or whatever. And it's like, I feel the same with AI a little bit, right? People say,
Sure.
you can use AI for this, you can. Who cares, as long as whatever the thing is we're trying to protect is protected, right? So I'll give you an example. Everything I do, it's going straight to get published clips, right? And let's say you say, I have concerns about opacity. And I'm like, okay, what about it? You're like, well, it's not, like, people can access the clips. I'm like, okay, do I this? But if those clips were like, confidential, that doesn't get published, I would have a very different opinion. But there's all these nuances, and I think sometimes people come up with all kinds of different things. They may forget about what that actually means.
They may, but look,
not.
Ignorance of the law is not an excuse, right? It's not going to keep you out of court. And
Yep.
if I had a very prominent brand label over my shoulder and you were using this in a commercial that was going to be broadcasted on the Super Bowl, where you're spending $6 or $7 million for 30 seconds, and you don't acquire all of the appropriate authorizations and licensing agreements to use the content that you've created, either traditionally or incorporating AI into the creation process, you're going to find yourself at the losing end of a lawsuit, and for copyright violation, trademark, trade name, whatever it may be. And so what you want to do is you want to take a step back right now. This is the moment in time where you really want to just maybe even use AI with the appropriate prompts to analyze the TOS agreements, the terms of service agreements, and the licensing agreements that dictate and control the AI platforms that you're using. For example, you might have a prompt that says something like, and by the way, this is not legal advice, we're just having a conversation, but a prompt that says something like, you're an experienced intellectual property attorney, you're an experienced business lawyer. Take a look at this TOS agreement and let me know if there are any privacy or security disclosure issues that I should be aware of moving forward, and see what the AI tells you, and then follow up with subsequent prompts. When you mention privacy with respect to provision 2.3a, what are you talking about? Why is that an issue? What are some ways I can avoid exposing myself or my clients to liability based upon this provision that you just brought to my attention. So you can use AI to go through these 20, 50, 100-page documents. And while you do so, what I would encourage your viewers to do, Christoph, is look at the indemnification agreements, look at the mandatory arbitration agreements. And what I mean by that is a lot of times the agreements that we're using and agreeing to by using these services, if there's litigation, if something happens, if there's a claim, oftentimes you're required as the user to step in under the indemnification agreement and provide a defense and or reimburse the parent company for any legal costs relating to litigation and claims. A lot of people don't know that. Is it going to be an issue in your life? Maybe, probably not if you're a small player. But these are provisions that the owner of the platforms, legal counsel for these platforms, can flip the switch and invoke immediately if they choose to do so. So what you want to do is kind of reframe how you're using AI, really understand the things that we've already mentioned, and then go into it with clear eyes, right? And an open mind, and then start leveraging this technology to do some really amazing things like what we're doing. We're using this more to do like analysis on what would be the right mindset of the right jury if I'm picking a jury. What are taking local community issues, local political and religious and monetary issues into mind? These are the issues of the case. What's the personality of the jurors that I'm looking to pick for this case is coming up? What are the 10 or 20 or 50 open-ended questions that I can ask the jury based upon these details? We're using this to drill down on personalities. We're using AI to figure out, okay, I'm going to be having a business meeting with Christoph. What's his personality? And there are prompts that we're using where I can get a pretty good idea. Are you a bottom line, straight shooter, short conversation kind of guy? Or do you like to BS for a while and get to know each other and talk small talk before we get to the business? I think companies and creators that use AI in this way, they're avoiding the legal issues of copyright and intellectual property. And I know you're going to have a guest on talking about that at some point in the future. But what they're doing is they're using AI for clarification, for analysis, to give you some guidance with how to approach that next issue, with how to approach that next step in business. And I think when creators and entrepreneurs and business owners use AI in that fashion, they're steering clear of the legal issues, but they're maximizing their chance to close more deals and to get more done. So that's the direction we're encouraging our clients to take things, to use it for those reasons, as opposed to, the creation reasons in a commercial setting, because right now you may have some issues if you do that.
Yeah, it's just so interesting too, because I like creating stuff from scratch in AI. Like I've never seen it work anywhere. Like just go in there and say, hey, write me an article on what do I need to know about the law and AI. And they just come up with some stuff, right? But now I'm going to take your content and I'm literally putting it into AI. And I'm saying, based on what Mitch and I talked about, write me that article, right? And then it gets me whatever. But the trick is I still have to pay attention. I still have to go and read it and say, did Mitch really say that? Maybe he did.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
I noticed his look, or when I said something, he went, like, AI didn't catch that, right? So like the context sometimes isn't necessarily right. So you still have to pay attention. There was the case with the lawyer somewhere early on, and they said, I need like 10 case studies, or that's not what they call them, precedents, right, or whatever.
Sure.
And it just made up 5 things. And the opposing counsel couldn't find it because it didn't exist. That's not how you use AI. So, but on the back end, like what does a company have to do? Like, I mean, a lot of marketers listen here. What does a company have to do? Like, is it just a policy and then the implementation, or how does it look on that end?
Sure.
Especially as it's moving so quickly. I think that's always the interesting thing. How do you come up with anything when it's moved so quickly, and by the time we're done, there's already something new again?
I'll tell you what, first of all, a lot of agencies are actually instructing their teams not to use AI to create the content, whether it's audio, video, or images, because of intellectual property and copyright reasons that we've already somewhat talked about, but you're going to talk more about next year. The lawyer using the the cases that didn't exist. Look, we see that in real life, right? I've been at counsel table and I've had opposing counsel at the other end cite bad law to the judge because they're more interested in going out to their 1:30 in the afternoon tee off time than they were in shepherdizing or double checking all of the cites in their briefs. We drive in vehicles, we fly, we take trains every day despite accidents. Things happen. The thing with AI is it's a product that's getting better and it's training itself each and every day and it's saving us time. And if you're an agency, if you're a company leveraging AI for all the right reasons, I think what you want to do is really double down on your due diligence. In other words, like I said, take a step back and are we comfortable based upon your understanding of this topic with what's being presented? For example, I'll use Perplexity AI to put in a trending legal topic I might see in the news, something of interest to me, something I want to learn more about, and I'll use the AI to drill down. And one of the beautiful things about Perplexity and even the new OpenAI Chat GPT 4.0 search feature is that you can click and see where it's delivering the response to you, where it's coming from. Is it a reputable source? So I think that's really important right now. In other words, double down and check where is this response coming from. There are little footnotes you can click on and you can see, is it coming from a major news site or is it coming from just an independent blogger that has a bias as to what he, she, or they are putting out. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I would tell and what we are telling our clients is to make sure everyone's properly trained. If you're using AI to troubleshoot, if you're using AI to help with sales content or how you're handling an incoming phone call, whatever it may be, everyone needs to be on the same page. And what I mean by that is if you're using company proprietary data in how you're prompting your AI, then you need to have safeguards and security protocols set up so that you're not sharing private information with the world. If you're encouraging your team to embrace AI, but you're not giving them these data protected AI versions of the tool, what they're going to do is they're going to download a free version of ChatGPT or one of the other platforms where the data that you're typing in is being shared and used to train the LLM, the large language models. And you may be inadvertently disclosing private information. So it's one thing to say, I want everyone to embrace AI as the owner of a company. It's another thing to say, we're going to embrace AI, and here are the 10 steps we're going to take using this particular product, which we've made sure complies with the privacy and security protocols that we're comfortable with as a company in our industry. And we want you to, if you're going to use AI, you got to use this particular link, this particular app. So that's where I would start. It comes through education, it comes through knowledge, and it comes through leadership. And I think the companies that are doing that right now, especially the law firms or marketing agencies that I'm involved with, are the ones that are seeing success, they're minimizing risk, and they're also I think they're providing a faster and better quality service and better client experience.
How do there's AI laws out there, certainly, but what laws are being applied to some of these cases? I'm sure there's an example maybe of some outdated law, right, being applied to something completely new today.
Sure. It's not even outdated laws. It's traditional laws that are now applied in these new digital arenas, right? And so right now, what you want to do is you want to have a good working understanding of intellectual property rights, copyright law. I think that's very, very important. And Christophe's going to have a guest next week to talk about that. But the bottom line is if you're using AI to create audio, video, images, and there's little or no human authorship involved in that process, then your end result isn't going to be protected by copyright. Now, maybe that doesn't matter to you if you're doing a blog or a newsletter or something like that. But if you're turning around and taking that content and you're providing it to a client who's using it in traditional commercial advertising, like we talked about, a Super Bowl ad, you're exposing that client, you're exposing your firm, your agency to massive, massive copyright violation liability. So I think it's important to kind of understand copyright law, licensing and contracts. When you're using these AI services, what exactly are you licensing or contracting to be able to do? Is it giving you the right to use the audio, written video, or whatever it may be, AI generated content in a commercial for commercial purposes, right? Or is it for personal purposes? Read the licensing agreements. I think that's critically important. The last thing I would do is, if I have a company and we're farming out to third parties, independent contractors, to help us create content, whatever type of content that might be, make sure you're using properly drafted third-party independent contractor agreements that protect you as the company for something that this independent contractor may inadvertently or intentionally do in violation of the law as it applies to artificial intelligence. You may have someone that's great at graphics, but they may not appreciate anything that we've talked about today in good faith. And so they provide you a week later with something that you think's amazing. You use it in your company, you use it in your marketing and branding, you turn around and you forward that to your client along with everything else that you've done to help them with a great new marketing and branding project. And then you find out 6 or 12 months later that independent contractor a year earlier created that content in violation of somebody's IP rights. Those are the issues that we're seeing. So if that happens, are you protected with your independent contractor agreement? Do you have the right to force that independent contractor to step up and defend you in court? Do you have the right in writing to have that independent contractor reimburse you for any damages? Is that independent contractor properly insured by liability insurance so that they even have the means to step up and protect you if you need that type of protection? So there are a lot of traditional legal/business issues that I'd like to see companies start incorporating into their everyday business activities when using AI to protect them, to make sure there's liability insurance coverage, and to also avoid damaging your reputation and your brand. If you do something like this, even in good faith, and you make a mistake, you could be putting yourself out of business because you've just destroyed your reputation. You've destroyed your trust. You've destroyed the credibility of your brand. A lot of big companies have a lot of options when it comes to marketing and branding. They're going to go with somebody that they know, they trust, and has a strong track record. So I think companies and people listening to today's podcast, Christoph, as long as they do their due diligence and think these things through before clicking, swiping, or tapping, I think they're going to be positioning themselves for long-term success moving forward, because this is an exciting time, and AI is going to have a bigger impact on business and on content creation, I think, than the printing press, electricity, and the internet combined. That's where we are right now.
I mean, it's just amazing how things move. And the one thing I heard too, Mitch, is, in other words, no, my friends, you cannot fire all your writers and editors because AI is around. You still need them. Certainly AI can help them, but you need to have some rules around that and make sure everybody works together. The other thing too is, I've used AI detection tools for content before, and most of them are actually kind of garbage, because like I've seen stuff that a person wrote and it's like, oh, this is like AI. But they're just not like the best writer, or that's their style, or so it's not like, we're not there yet. But every good thing has to come to an end. So really appreciate you coming on the show. Mitch, we already are out of time again. Just really briefly, who should reach out to you? Where do you like to connect? And really appreciate you coming on.
Keep in mind the content detection systems that are coming out. That's going to be an old conversation. Nobody's going to care anymore in a year from now. It's going to be about, did they add value, and is your client or customer getting what they want? I'd love to have everybody connect with me over on LinkedIn, Christoph, also at my website, mitch-jackson.com. I love helping the community. DM me, PM me, and the pleasure was all mine.
Awesome. Nice to see you, Mitch, and we're out.
Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review the Business Storytelling Show on your favorite podcast platform, and subscribe